Welcome to the Go to War podcast with your host, John Paramore. Now it's time to go to war. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Go to War podcast. This is your host, John Paramore, and we're going to switch things up a little bit today. Normally, when we come on the podcast, we're talking a lot about mindset, and today's definitely going to be about mindset, but we're going to go a little bit different direction than we typically go. And I'm going to go through the normal prefacing with you guys today. I'm going to go through the normal stuff that I talk about. Number one, this is not a podcast where we're sponsored. We don't get paid to do this podcast. I've had, actually, in the last month or so, we're getting a lot of downloads. We're getting a lot of subscribers. So I've had some offers to do some sponsorship work for the podcast, but I'm not interested in that. This podcast is for you guys. This is me taking my own personal experience from the 20 years plus that I've been an entrepreneur. It's me taking my experience in the things that we are doing today and we continue to do and sharing it with you guys solely with the hopes that you guys listen to it, you take what we talk about, you apply it, you do something with it, and makes your life better, okay? The only currency that I ask for when we talk about this podcast is that you like it, you share it, or you comment. Those are the only things I need you guys to do, right? Some of you guys are incredibly good about that. I appreciate that. The rest of you guys, if you listen to this, you're consuming the content, please like it, share it, comment, leave us a review, all that good stuff. Second part, if you're listening to this podcast, you need to know that there's some topics that I go through on a regular basis where I'm pretty passionate about them. Actually, a lot of what we talk about on this podcast, I'm pretty passionate about, which is why I talk about it. When I talk about it, sometimes we go down a rabbit hole. I go down a rabbit hole and I use some salty language. If you're offended by this language, if you don't like how it sounds, you think people are stupid for saying it, you're delicate around language, you're going to get offended, you're going to leave a negative review, I'm just going to ask you not to listen to this podcast, watch this podcast, consume this podcast, because I don't have time to have to combat your negative views and issues that you have going on mentally and likely psychologically to where you can't handle a couple of colorful words, okay? So now with all that being said, we're going to talk about two things today. Number one, we're going to talk about the power of positivity, and we're going to get into gratefulness and all of that stuff and what that looks like. And the second part we're going to talk about is the power of visualization. And the power of visualization makes people, a lot of people that hear about it for the first time, a lot of people that come in contact with it the first time, it can make them uncomfortable. And the reason, I'm not going to get into like the psychology behind it and all of that stuff. I can recommend books for you to read and things like that. But the reason why talking about visualization makes people uncomfortable is, number one, when they hear what it can do and what it does and how it works, it's hard for some people to believe because, number one, they haven't ever done it before. Or if they've done it before, they didn't realize that they were doing it and they didn't understand the wave that it was creating or the ripple effect that it was creating and how some of the things in their life directly happened as a result of them visualizing those things coming to fruition. And that can be, I'm going to focus on the positive side of that today, but I'll also preface it and let you know that can also be negative. There are a lot of people that walk around on this planet with an ungrateful spirit, an ungrateful heart, an ungrateful soul, an ungrateful mindset. And as a default mechanism of that, they tend to think and worry about all of the bad stuff that could happen to them. And what happens with that is it creates this ripple effect and puts this energy out into space. And I don't mean space like fucking space in the black world and shit. Like, I'm talking about just an energetic space that begins to put some of those things into motion. And a lot of times that's done subconsciously. So the one thing that I want to focus on with you guys today, number one, is the power of positivity. Okay. I am a realist. I am very much so a realist. When you guys, if you've ever heard me speak, or you see me work with clients, or you see me have conversations with people in person, I'm very realistic with what I talk about. I'm very blunt. I'm very honest. I'm very truthful. I'm right and to the point. Okay. Mostly because I don't like small talk, and mostly because I don't like to waste time. So I don't have a lot of casual conversation with people. The power of positivity, and the reason why it works is because it's not so much about me asking you or telling you that you need to be positive in all times. We're all going to go through some sorrow. We're all going to go through some grief. Someone close to us passes away. We're going to feel that. We're emotional human beings. I'm talking about looking at everything that happens around us as a result of what we do, as a result of actions that we take, and looking for the positive in all things. A lot of times I did a podcast on this before where I'm talking about extracting the lesson, right? I talked about what's going on with the virus and other things that are going on this year, and how do you look at these things and extract the lesson inside of these things. Now, the power of positivity, when you extract the lesson, you're able to find something positive that you can build on. That's the power of positivity. You don't, you can't be in both places at the same time where you think things that happen to you, you're a victim of circumstance to certain things, and that things happen for you. You tend to live in one of two spaces. Either it's happening to me at all times, or it's happening for me at all times. What I've learned over the years is that when I look at things that occur, and I understand that a lot of times those things are happening for my benefit, but it's my responsibility to look at it through a set of lenses that are more positive than negative, to look at it in a way where I can extract out a lesson, learn the lesson, look at what the lesson gave me, and then correct course or make a move that actually gets me away from something negative that could happen and propels me into something positive that could happen. Also, in the world of the power of positivity, what I want you guys to really start thinking about, and kind of like what I was talking about where we're talking about visualization, is I want you to start thinking about during the day how many thoughts that you have that are like, I'm worried about something that could happen. I'm thinking about something that if I don't do something, I start to think about what are going to be the negative repercussions of me not doing it. There was a period of time for a long time that I thought about, well, if I don't make this positive thing happen, here's all the negative things that are going to happen as a result of that. Instead of saying, when I make this positive thing happen, here's a list of all the great things that are going to happen because of that. Do you see that? And I think a lot of people in this day and age, they get stuck in that negative mindset where they start to think about all the bad things that can happen. And a perfect example of that, if you watched and paid any attention when the first announcements happened of like shutdowns and closures and whatever as a result of the coronavirus, there were two very distinct people that came out of that immediately. There were the people that immediately started to, at like a promotion of the podcast, go to war. They started to function in a mindset that was like, I must overcome. I must extract the lesson. I must look at what this is giving to me. I must start to think about, how do I pivot and alter directions and go a different way? How can I take advantage of this situation? How can I prosper in this situation? And then there was a very different group of people that you could see start to think about all of the negative shit that was happening because the virus or the outbreak was happening to them. There was a victor mindset. There was a victim mindset. People took one path or the other. And the reason why, all the way from the very beginning, if you go look at the podcast that we started doing around the time frame of COVID and all that stuff when it started happening, my mind immediately was on this podcast telling you guys, you cannot sit and wait. You cannot focus on the shit that's going on. You cannot get trapped in the succubus of coronavirus and shutdowns and whatever. You've got to start thinking about how to change your business, extract a lesson, move forward. The reason why I was able to do that was because I had been through a shitstorm back in 2008, 2009, and I knew what it felt like to be the victim of that circumstance when I actually created the components that led to me being a victim inside of that particular circumstance. And so I started to work on my mindset, started to focus more on the power of positivity, more on visualization of what I want and less of what I don't want, so that when the coronavirus stuff started to happen, my mind immediately goes to its default setting. And the default setting is, what do I need to do in order to take advantage of what's happening right now and make something positive out of something that seems really negative? And you got to understand, that's not me being unemotional or insensitive about what's happened with some people have suffered major loss. Some people died from the coronavirus. I get all that, right? I'm talking about my ability to control what I can control, my ability to control my thoughts as that stuff starts to happen, and be able to pivot and not only survive what was going on, but also begin to thrive at a very big level, on a very big wave. Okay. So, but you got to understand, at no point in time in the last 8 years have I not had a day go by, a week go by, a month go by, a quarter go by, a year go by, where I'm not constantly thinking about the things that I want to create, the things that I want inside my life, the people that I want to create, the people that I want inside my life, the type of structure that I want to live in, the type of environment that I want to live in, what my level of standard is, what my level of tolerance is, and visualize all of that stuff. And that's really where the power is, right? Like, as an example, we're talking about building a new house. And that all starts with sitting down. If you've ever been through the process of building a new house, that starts with sitting down and being very, very clear about what's going to go inside the house, what light fixtures, what flooring, what paint colors, what type of trim is going to, what types of doors. I mean, every single minute detail is laid out in what is called a set of plans, architectural plans, long before somebody starts building a foundation, somebody starts framing the walls, somebody starts putting a roof on. I mean, can you imagine? And this is a really simple analogy, but I'm going to drive this point home to you guys with this thing. Can you imagine walking out to a plot of land that's got trees all over it? It's acres of land. You're going to go build a house. You don't have any sets of plans whatsoever. And you have a chainsaw in your hand, and your step number one is, I'm going to start clearing trees in order to build the house, but you don't even know how wide the foundation is going to be. You don't know what the walls are going to look like, whatever. And you start cutting a tree down, and the tree falls a particular way, happens to land on your vehicle, and then all of a sudden your mindset starts to become, oh, well, if I go cut another tree down and the same thing happens, there's some bad shit that could happen to that. But because you didn't visualize what the house was going to look like, you didn't visualize where it was going to go on the land, you didn't visualize all the great things that were going to happen as a result of you building the house, you now get left with a shitstorm that you have to deal with. And there are actually people that would do that very thing inside of their own life and then claim to be a victim of circumstance, that I was just cutting a tree down and it fell on my truck. That happened to me. And the difference is when you focus on the power of positivity, and you having gone through, if you look at all the adversity that you've been through in your life, and you look at those things as though they happened for you to teach you a lesson, to give you strength, to give you something that you needed to learn in order to be better, to be a better human being. and you start to extract that stuff out. You begin to be grateful for those lessons. You begin to be grateful for those experiences. You begin to be grateful for the things that have led you to where you are today. And then what happens in the world of gratefulness, you start to have an abundant mindset, which helps you to remain positive, which then gives you more positive experiences. Remember, I told you guys at the very beginning of this podcast, if you've never been through the power of visualization, you've never had somebody talk to you about the power of positivity, these things are incredibly real. I made a post earlier this week that was like an overview of this exact same thing. Okay. And the post was around if you have an ungrateful heart and an ungrateful soul, you should expect to have more bad things happen. If you have a grateful heart and a grateful soul, you should expect to have more of that, more positive things, more good things happen. But either way, whichever you choose, you should expect more of that. So there's not an in-between in this. There's just not. If you were to get really diligent, I talk a lot about tracking. It's one of our core values in here, track everything. If you were to get diligent about tracking and you were to suspend a couple days, and every 15 or so minutes, you grab a journal and you write down, what are you thinking? What are the thoughts going through your mind? What are the thoughts going through your mind? And you reflect back on that every single day. You're being honest. You're just writing it down. Nobody's going to look at it. And you're being honest with yourself, and you look at it and you go, shit, there's more negative thoughts happening on this piece of paper than there are positive thoughts. And then you look at your life in general and you're like, is there more positive things happening in my life or more negative things happening in your life? Then you can start to put those things together. What are you every day? What are you intentionally being grateful for inside? Are you grateful for your spouse? You wake up and you're grateful for your kids. You wake up and you're grateful for the car that you're driving. You wake up and you're grateful for the house that you have, the fact that you have a house, the fact that you have food on the table. I'm telling you guys, it is a direct correlation to everything that's going on in your life right now based on how much or how often you're showing gratitude. This might be the first time you ever heard it, and this is going to shock the shit out of you, but it is everything that's going on in your world right now is directly tied to either your grateful heart or your ungrateful heart. It's tied to your grateful mind or your ungrateful mind. And the ungrateful mind brings upon it bad shit because it's not grateful for what it already has. It's not grateful for the lessons it's learned. It's not grateful for the experiences it's been through. But the grateful mind is like the creative mind, right? It's like, I'm so grateful for all these things, even though if some of them to the outside world appear to be bad, but you're still grateful for the experience. You're still grateful for the lesson that you learned. I promise you, more good stuff is going to be sent to you than bad because the grateful heart brings about more things to be grateful for. So I told you guys, I'm not going to get into the roots of psychology around this, but if you have conversations with people that are incredibly successful and you ask them questions like, where does gratitude play a role in your life? How does gratitude play a role in your life? They're going to tell you. Because I have friends that have massive companies, half a billion-dollar companies, right? These people are some of the most grateful people that I've ever met in my entire life. And I've actually had people tell me verbatim, my company didn't take off, my life didn't take off, my relationship with my spouse didn't take off, my health and fitness didn't take off until I learned to have a heart of gratitude. Until I learned to have a mindset of gratitude, until I learned the power of positivity, until I really understood that visualization of who I wanted to become, what I want, what I was working to create, was not only necessary, but required. And I'm doing it subconsciously, whether I want to or not. I'm either visualizing what the bad thing is that could happen, or I'm visualizing the great thing that's going to come out of the work that I'm about to do. And like I was telling you guys earlier, back to the analogy of building a house, you can't half-ass visualization. You can't. If you half-ass write down a goal or a target, and then you begin to visualize a half-ass target, you're going to get a half-ass result. There's got to be details in visualization. You got to write down, what kind of relationship do I want with my spouse? What kind of relationship do I want with my kids? What kind of relationship do I want with people that I work with? What type of physical fitness do I want in my own body? What type of people do I want to hang around? Do I want to hang around people that are physically fit? Do I want to hang around people that are not physically fit? Do I want to hang around people that are grateful? Do I want to hang around people that are not grateful? And then you got to speak that stuff into truth. I want to be around people that are X. I want to have a relationship that is X. These are all techniques of visualization. And I might even do a deeper rooted podcast on what it takes and what it looks like and how I visualize on a constant basis. Some people use vision boards. I think vision boards for some people are excellent. They put that stuff up. But what you can't have is a vision board without action. You can't throw a bunch of shit on a board and look at it every single day, but then not take action, because then you're going to get really frustrated and disappointed when none of it comes to fruition, but you fail to take action on it, right? The difference is if you build a vision board and you're constantly working on a plan, like we talked about when you build a house, what's it going to take to make it come to fruition? Got to take the trees down, got to dig the hole, got to pour the foundation, got to frame the walls, all that stuff. And you're doing the work. Well, guess what? At the end of the months that it takes, you're going to have a house. There's going to be something sitting there. Okay. So I'm going to recap and tell you this. I always give you guys quote unquote homework at the end of these podcasts. If this is that, if that's how you look at it, cool. If you look at it like, hey, if I do this, something great is going to come out of it. If you listen to this podcast and you go, yeah, I'm not going to do the exercise or the work at the end or whatever, that's negative visualization, whether you like it or not. I don't have time, blah, 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 excuse, whatever. Okay. You're going to get what you're going to get regardless of whether you do the work or you don't. There's going to be a payoff or there's not. Okay. I would, if it's me and I'm you and I haven't ever been, I'm not disciplined in doing this work, I would start for 3 days and write down the thoughts that you're thinking every half an hour. If you want to get really on it, write it down every 15 minutes, but at least every half hour. The last half hour, some of the thoughts that you think are going to be subconscious, I get it, but try to capture to the best of your ability. What was I just thinking about? Was I thinking about something good that's going on? Was I thinking about something negative that's going on? You're always in one of two places. Somebody once told me that did this exercise. Well, I kind of just felt like for half the day, I was kind of just idle. I wasn't really thinking about a whole lot. I was focused on doing my work and I wasn't really, no, dude, the average human has like 16,000 unconscious thoughts a day. So we're always thinking. We're always thinking about something. So every half hour, write down what it is that you're thinking about. Are you thinking about more of what you want, less of what you want? Are you thinking good about somebody or are you thinking bad about somebody? Are you worrying about what's going to happen or are you planning out what's going to happen? And then take those 3 days worth of work and do an inventory like we talk about a lot and really sit down and go, man, is this really what I want? Like, is this the thought process that I want? The man that, and this can be women too, but the quote goes, the man that's able to master his mind masters his soul. The man that's unwilling to master his mind or cannot master his mind has a soul that often wanders. And what that means is the man that can get control of his thoughts and be intentional about what he thinks creates a life he wants. And the person who cannot do that gets a life handed to them that they often do not want. And in reality, the life that most people say that they do not want ends up giving them exactly what they want anyway because they just didn't do the work. I want you to think about that, okay? And then I want you to start to, if you don't like what's on that sheet, I want you to start thinking about what is it that you really want to create. I want you to go through an exercise every single day. I want you to set a timer on your phone every 3 hours throughout the day where you're awake. I want you to just say out loud, I'm thankful for something. I'm grateful for something. Okay? If you'll take this exercise and you'll take this podcast and you'll apply it and you start to get your mind right every day when you get up to go to war, you'll go to war with a heart of gratitude and thankfulness. And that's going to net you more of what you want from a positive standpoint. Okay? So take this work, start to apply it, start to do what's necessary, get your mind right, and go to war.